15,000 years ago, in a cave in England, a group of people took the body of someone they loved. They cleaned the skull with enormous care, and they shaped the top of it into a smooth, rounded cup, something you could hold in two hands and drink from. This really happened. But the reason wasn't cruelty, and it wasn't hunger. It might have been the closest thing they had to a funeral. To understand it, we have to go to a place called Gough's Cave, tucked into a gorge in the southwest of England. It's a real site, studied for decades, and it holds some of the most surprising evidence we have about how ancient humans dealt with death. Because deep in that cave, archaeologists found human skulls that had been deliberately, skillfully reshaped. The rounded top of the head turned into a bowl. They're around 15,000 years old, and they are the oldest examples of their kind ever directly dated anywhere on Earth. When you first hear that, your brain goes to a dark place: monsters, violence, something savage. And for a long time, that's roughly what people assumed. But then researchers looked closer, and the story quietly fell apart. Because this wasn't the work of frenzy or war, it was the work of patience. Making a cup out of a human skull, it turns out, takes real skill and real time. You can see it in the marks left behind. Whoever did this worked carefully and methodically, cleaning the bone and removing the soft tissue with the same precision a skilled toolmaker would use. Then they took away the bones of the face and the base of the skull and shaped what remained, the smooth dome of the head, into a rounded vessel. This is not something you do in anger. This is something you do slowly, with attention, almost with reverence, the way you handle something that matters. And there's another clue. On one of the bones from the same cave, archaeologists found a delicate zigzag pattern, carefully carved into the surface, not a butchering mark, a design. Someone took the time to engrave a piece of human bone in exactly the artistic style these people used on their most valued objects. You don't decorate the remains of an enemy. You decorate something that holds meaning. So if it wasn't violence, maybe it was desperation. Maybe these people were starving, and this was survival, the grim last resort of a group with nothing left to eat. Except the evidence says no to that too. The same cave is full of animal bones. Deer, horses, the remains of successful hunts. These weren't people on the edge of starvation. They had food. Whatever they were doing with their own dead, they weren't doing it because they were hungry. They were doing it on purpose, as a choice when they had other options. Which leaves the strangest possibility of all, that this was their way of saying goodbye. Anthropologists have a name for this: funerary cannibalism. And while it sounds like a contradiction, something tender and something horrifying stitched together, it shows up again and again across human cultures, right into recent history. In parts of the Amazon, there were peoples who found the idea of burying a loved one in the cold, wet ground genuinely disturbing. To them, leaving someone you loved alone in the dirt to slowly disappear was the cruel option. The kind, respectful thing, the loving thing, was to take that person into the community one last time, to keep them close, to make sure they were never simply abandoned to rot in the earth. Look at Gough's Cave through that lens, and everything changes. The careful cleaning of the bone isn't gruesome, it's tender. The reshaping of the skull isn't destruction, it's transformation, turning a person into something lasting that the living could hold on to. Quite literally, keeping a piece of them at the table. This wasn't a group of monsters. It was a group of mourners, grieving the only way they knew how. And once you see it that way, you start to notice how deeply human it actually is. Because turning a skull into a vessel wasn't unique to one strange cave in England. The practice echoes across thousands of years and thousands of miles. Ancient warrior cultures like the Scythians were said to make cups from skulls. Stories of the same thing trail through history all the way to the Vikings and beyond. Gough's Cave just happens to hold the oldest firmly dated examples we found, the earliest known chapter of a very long human story, and it wasn't a one-off, even in its own time. Other sites from the same culture scattered across Ice Age Europe show the same careful treatment of the dead. When researchers reviewed dozens of these sites, they found this wasn't random or rare. For these people, Processing and honoring their dead this way was simply part of the culture, a tradition, a shared idea about what you're supposed to do when someone dies. And this connects to something even bigger. Caring for the dead in a deliberate, structured way is one of the very first signs of what makes us human at all. It's the same impulse that led other ancient people to bury their dead with flowers, to sprinkle a body with red ochre, to place tools and food beside a grave for a journey no one could see. Somewhere deep in our past, humans stopped treating a dead body as just meat left behind and started treating it as something that still mattered, something sacred. That shift, from carcass to loved one, from disappearance to ceremony, may be one of the true beginnings of the human mind, and Gough's cave is one of the oldest, clearest windows we have into that moment. It also completely rewrites the cartoon in your head. We picture Ice Age people as grunting, half-aware survivors, thinking about nothing but the next meal. But you don't invent a funeral tradition if your whole world is just survival. You don't carefully shape a vessel, or engrave a pattern into bone, or gather your community around a death unless you feel something, unless loss means something to you. These people grieved. They remembered. They had ideas about what happens when a life ends. That is not a lesser version of humanity. That is humanity, already fully here, 15,000 years ago. Think about how significant that is. 15,000 years ago, spread across a continent, humans had already developed customs around death, not just instinct, culture, rules and rituals about how to treat the people they lost. That's not the behavior of simple brutes clinging to survival. That's the behavior of people with beliefs, people who thought the dead deserved something, people who, in their own way, were asking the same question we still ask at every funeral. What do we owe the ones we love after they're gone? And here's the part that should stop you. That question hasn't changed at all. We don't make cups anymore, but look at what we do. We can't just walk away from our dead either. We wash and dress the bodies of people we love. We keep their ashes on the shelf in a jar. We wear a locket with their picture, or a ring that used to be theirs. We visit a patch of grass and talk to a name carved in stone. So come back, one last time, to that cave. The fire is low. A small group sits together in the flickering light, holding a smooth, pale vessel that used to be a person they knew. They're not celebrating a kill. They're not monsters at a feast. They are people in mourning, gathered around what remains of someone they loved, trying to keep them near for just a little longer. It's not savage. It's a funeral, one of the oldest we have ever found. And the reason it feels so strange to us isn't that these people were nothing like us. It's that, deep down, they were exactly like us.